I'm sorry.
Let's go.
Let's move this along. The board workshop for March 26th is now beginning, and I will hand it over to Superintendent Van Ayers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board members, this is one of our, we have three policy workshops that are scheduled this calendar year. This is our first of three. So that being said, we do have a number of policies we want to work through today. One board member policy, and then we also have some other policies that are brought forward by my staff, which we'd like to make some adjustments to. So without further ado, let's get this moving, and I'll turn this over to begin with our first policy to Mr. Porter.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent and board members. As you will recall, the first policy is on wireless communication and other electronic devices. You may recall that last year, Ms. Combs and Ms. Gray brought forward a policy dealing with this, and it generated a lot of discussion and a lot of really good discussion. And one of the takeaways from that earlier policy workshop was that a survey be done of parents, staff, teachers, to find out where people really stood on this. You also all had a lot of feedback on it, so based on that, Ms. Gray is bringing and Ms. Combs bringing the policy back. We looked at the feedback we received from the surveys. We looked specifically at Orange County, who has adopted a similar type of policy, as well as Pasco County. And what you see before you is the result of that. Since this has been drafted, we've talked to the superintendent, has some comments he's going to make about perhaps revising it. But because this is a workshop, that you are going to wrestle with this. And it is a topic that is a big topic, not only in Hillsborough County, but in the country. And it's really what you should be doing at a workshop for policy. You're setting policy. It's important. It's a big issue. And so today we're really interested in hearing the feedback that we receive from the board. And again, it can be tweaked. It can be reworked. Anything that you will want, because it's your policy. With that being said, I'll turn it over to Ms. Gray.
So this is the policy regarding the cell phone usage. The rationale, if you'll just humor me for about 3 minutes, I'm just going to go through rationale. Member Perez, did you want to? Okay. The average age now is at 10 years old who are being exposed to sexting, obscene material, images of private body parts sent to their classmates, pornography sites, and social media sites, such as Disney porn, to give you an example. Our Tampa Bay region is third in the nation as a metropolitan city of human trafficking. I want to thank Nadia Combs, member Nadia Combs, our Hillsborough Healthy Schools Survey, our Human Trafficking Committee, and our Student Online Safety Committee for the amount of statistics I'll share. The mental toll of our youth is real. The Crisis Center, Clara Reynolds, reported from 2022 to 2023, 55% of the suicide calls are related to the calls, the social media sites on their phone. And they identify bullying as the top concern. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children reports, child sexual assault material made up of 99% of the incidents recorded on the tip line last year, which is a 73% increase from 2021. Remember, that's the COVID year. Incidents were child pornography, child sex trafficking, obscene material sent via social media sites, words or images on online molestation of children, photos of children sent online with visual body parts. Are the students safe? Joshua Crystal, Hillsborough County Public Schools, who works on the discipline. 2022 to 2023, 5,639 students from social media, misuse of electronic devices, were fighting. Fights were caused through that conduit. In this year, up to March 14th, now remember, this is last week, up to March 14th, and this goes from grades 1, first grade, to 12th grade. We're not done with the school year. 5,232 fights already from the use of, or the misuse of, cell phones. Legislative trending, and this is probably very significant and why I kind of waited a little bit to to make it more supportive of for our principals and for our superintendent and for our board members. From the Florida Senate, and this is in 2023, for students in grades 6 through 12, the negative social, emotional, and physical effects that we find from social media sites include depression, anxiety, phone addiction, and a lot via distribution of misinformation on social media platforms, all which serve to manipulate behavior, allow permanency of youth being tied to nefarious actions on social platforms. In other words, what's on that phone doesn't disappear. It becomes rather permanent. All of that results in the lack of personal security due to, again, the same type of words: cyberbullying, predatory behavior, and human trafficking. More legislative trending. Florida Statute 1006.07 requires that district school board codes of student conduct include a prohibition against students using wireless communication devices during instructional time and authorization for teachers to withhold a student's device with an exception for use at the direction of that teacher. House Bill 3 yesterday, many of you are familiar, and this has all been trending for, I'd say, 2 years. So the bill was modified just recently. Governor DeSantis, bipartisan bill, and I'm just about done. Florida follows a handful of other states from California to Arkansas that have placed similar limits on kids' social media use in response to rising rates of teen depression and suicide, as Member Perez is very familiar with. Various school districts have put together tighter policies regarding cell phone use in schools. The Pasco County, Pinellas has a little bit more, Orange County for sure. And I just spoke to the Orange County School Board member, and she has also said the fighting, the bullying, the academics have greatly improved. You can go to Greco Principal, greatly improved. You can go to Webb Principal, greatly improved. You can go to Ballast Point, that's an elementary, greatly improved. Social media sites are, and I don't want to use the word killing, but it's damaging our psyche of our children, my grandchildren. All right. Lastly, and very importantly, because we're educators, academics, as a teacher, and many of you have been teachers, how do you teach when you have a competition from a cell phone that is playing around with nude parts of a body taken in the restroom, shared, fighting types of, we're going to meet at Al Lopez Field. I mean, I can give you a lot of examples because that's what our student online safety does. But how can students learn? And Superintendent Van Ayers, you want those DNF scores to go up. Well, you have to remember, if you got competition from a cell phone, you are going to be compromised, as we all will be, because they are not paying attention if they're having cell phone, addiction. And that's the plain and simple way of putting it. Ask yourselves, every one of us, would academic performance increase when cell phones are removed in schools? Absolutely. I have the data that supports that. That's important. Will their mental disposition, anxiety, depression be mitigated? Absolutely. The data is overwhelming. Now, by the way, I just thank every school board member for their input coming forth, because I welcome it, and I think we all do, and that discussion is critical as we put together the policy. Mr. Porter, I was asked by a few principals, one of them was Dr. Whalen, to put in, with the approval of their region superintendent and based on specific facts and circumstances, a school principal may impose more restrictive conditions at their school. In other words, giving the school principal a little bit more freedom to make more restrictions. Okay. So I'll give that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Anybody in the queue? Ms. Renton?
Thank you, Member Gray. And I do agree that cell phones contribute to a lot of various things within our schools. I do also see another side as well. And so I want to make sure that whatever policy we as a district create is going to amplify both teacher support and principal support. We want to make sure that teachers have control of their classrooms and principals have control of their schools. And we should never create a policy that's going to limit that. I do appreciate the fact that when we created this policy, we do reference Florida Statute 1006.07 2. However, in 2023, this policy was actually updated by House Bill 379. And based upon House Bill 379, there's a few changes I would like to make to this policy. And in accordance to, and we reference it multiple times, where we talk about, for purposes of this section in line number 11, the demonstrated area to be in a student's backpack and or purse except when expressly directed by a teacher. One, I would add in there, and or admin staff, any school personnel should have that, not personnel, but any administration or teacher should have that ability. However, in that statute, under 379, under line 14, authorizing teachers and other instructional personnel to designate an area for wireless communication during instructional time. So the law doesn't limit it to just backpacks and purses. And I think it's important that we focus on what the law says and give that teacher and that administration flexibility in where they choose to store those devices. So that would be a recommendation that we would take directly from law and give the flexibility back to the teacher and the principal.
Could I hit?
Sure.
So, just so I understand, so you would be, it would, what would that really, what would that look like if it wasn't in their backpack? Are you thinking they would be?
We have some teachers that allow for example, we've got where they have like a shoe pockets.
Got it, okay.
Where they choose that. The bottom line is our policy should be friendly to a teacher and to a school admin.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful.
They're running their classrooms, they're running their schools. I'm 100% in agreement with Ms. Gray that we've got to limit screen time usage, but I want to make sure we do that with giving the authority to the teacher and to the principal on how they do that per their school by maintaining our policy that it's not to be used during instructional time. The law does specifically state that the cell phone should not be in use during instructional time, with the exception of when a teacher gives permission. And I think that's the key element, that whatever the policy is, we make sure we give that authority back to the teacher and the principal for them to designate how it is. They are all professionals, and we've given their students to their care.
Okay, thank you.
So in that particular one, line item, like I said, it was line item in the law, 14 through 16. Also, in that same law, lines 25 through 29, it specifically states, prohibits students from the wireless communication devices during instructional time, providing an exception, requiring a teacher to designate an area for wireless communication devices during instructional time, provided an effective date. So again, it reinforces the fact that teachers to have that designated time. And I think that's important for us to recognize and know. Also, if we look at that same statute, when we get to line item number 92 of that statute, authority of teachers, responsibility for control of students, district school board and principal duties, subject to law and the rule of the district school board, each teacher or other member of the staff of any school shall have such authority for the control and discipline of students as may be assigned to him or her by the principal or principal's designated representative, and shall keep good order in classrooms and order and other places in which he or she is assigned to be in charge of students. Line item number 101 to 110. In accordance with this section and within the framework of the District School Board Code of Student Conduct, teachers and other instructional personnel shall have the authority to undertake any of the following actions in managing student behavior and ensuring the safety of all students in their classes and school and the opportunity to learn in an orderly and disciplined classroom. Establish classroom rules of conduct, including designated areas of wireless communication devices during instructional time. So in accordance to the new law, which went into further detail than Florida Statute 1006.7, this gave a little more clarity and a little more authority to both the teacher and to the principal. And so in accordance to that, I just want to make a few changes in that. In looking at line number 7, in which we say designated by a teacher, I like to add and or admin or responsible personnel of the school.
Got it.
The next section in section 8, it says solely for educational purposes. Now, I'm 100% agreement that we don't want cell phones to be out just in general, but by giving teachers and administration or authority to do that, it does give the use for outside educational purposes. For example, in many of our high schools today, they are using their electronic devices to actually pull up the student code of conduct. They're using their electronic devices when they are voting on homecoming, when they're voting on student council, when they're voting or taking a survey that we as a district have provided them. So I think it's important that we give flexibility again to both our teachers and our administration for their judgment on when that cell phone is used. By putting in here solely for educational purposes, we limit their authority. And so that would be my recommendation, to give the principal and the teacher the authority. Again, in line number 11, we addressed that we should not be designating exactly where. In line number 12, solely for educational, directed by a teacher and or admin or responsible personnel, however we want to word that. And then solely for educational purposes. Again, I would remove that line, giving the authority to the principal and to the teacher on how and which they designate it. This policy removes cell phones from the use period, except when designated by a teacher or school administration. And I think that's Ms. Gray's purpose, is to really remove it from just being out there and being able to be used in general for any sort of purposes. But putting it back on the teacher and the school principal, we give them their authority that they so deserve. The other thing is, in line number 16, we word it in such a way in which we say that if the cell phone is used in a criminal act, such as sexting or online for Florida statutes and or code, the cell phone will be provided to law enforcement. I would put a period there, and I would then add, a student may have criminal penalties if used in a criminal act. That goes directly back to the law and wording exactly as the law has intended. I'm afraid that if we leave it the way it is and student may face criminal penalties, it puts the responsibility on us as a district and not on law enforcement. By having it as a separate sentence, we designated out that law enforcement will be responsible for those penalties and not the district. In line number, again, 1920, again, solely for educational purpose, just for the purpose of removal. The other thing I want to make notice of is when we did our insight survey last year, we provided a question: what are the reasons in which you would stay as a principal? One, they said inspiring leadership, inspiring immediate supervisor, positive school culture and learning environment, opportunity for advocacy, for advancement in career opportunities. They want to feel safe and they want to feel supported. They want a development of a supported and to improve leadership skills. They want the authority to make decisions about their school and their classroom. They want to be recognized and respect. They want to have the ability to have positive impact on students' outcomes. I think by changing these wordings of these and this policy, it still has the same intent, Ms. Gray, as I believe you intended it to be, for the safety of the students and removing devices just to being out at schools so that they are not accessing content, and yet it still provides the authority, the respect to the teacher and to the administrators of the school. And so that's where my changes come from. I also want to make note to the district and to anyone listening here right now, we do have procedures in place through our IT department that are safeguarding our students from not accessing those social media sites while on campuses, using any of our devices, using any of our Wi-Fi. If a student is accessing those devices, they are doing it through the permission of their parents who have not deemed their personal devices to be prohibited from accessing those sites. If they try to use our social media or if they try to use our internet, they will be limited from accessing those sites. So I think that is very important for families to know that we have taken those securities and those precautions within our school. I also want to make note that House Bill 3 that was just passed does limit the access or permission from students to access social media sites under the age of 14 unless given specific permission for 13 and 14 by their parents. we as a school district are not trying to do your parents' jobs, but we are trying to make sure that your students are getting a proper education in our schools and giving our teachers and our administrators the authority to do such thing. Thank you, Ms. Gray and Ms. Combs, for bringing this. I think it's a very good policy. I think it emphasizes our district culture as to the fact that attendance and academics are our first priority, but yet giving teachers and permission their ability to use electronic devices, as this is a new day and a new time that devices are going to be used, but doing it in a healthy manner possible for students. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Ms. Vaughn next, and then Ms. Gray. Do you want to speak? Okay.
Let her speak before
So Ms.
me.
Vaughn and then Ms. Combs.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak? Okay. So
Oh,
you're-
shake, I'm sorry. Yeah,
She's moving down the line.
I'm moving down the line. Oh,
So Ms.
well.
Vaughn, Ms. Sorry? Oh. Okay, then Ms. Combs.
I mean, I have to say that. Okay, I have to say, I appreciate the changes. I think it's very important. I think that often, as board members or even as district personnel, sometimes, you get more and more removed from the day-to-day activities, and sometimes it's easy to pass, different rules and things of that nature, not realizing how it really impacts the teachers day to day. And we really want to make sure that the principals and the teachers have the control of that and what that looks like. The only thing is, I think sometimes some of this is, I'd like to have a little more clarity on what that looks like at each level, like elementary, middle school, and the high school level. That's one of the things that I just want, I think we can add that. What does that look like? Does that mean that high school kids will not have a phone access at lunch? I mean, those are big questions. Like, what does that really look like? So I think we could probably have a little bit more clean language on what that looks like for elementary and middle and high school. Those are very, very three different things. And I have to say that I have a very strong feeling about cell phones that everyone knows. I've talked about it a lot. But I will say that at our student forum this year, when we had the middle school and high school forum, I did talk about cell phones a lot with my group of students because it was very important to me. And as I said, I think being on the ground is very different than being here. And one of the things that a lot of the high school students said to me, now middle school is very different, but I think high school, one of the things that they said, the challenging part was how often they had to use their phones because of the problems without having one-on-one tablets and because of technology and Wi-Fi and everything being slow. And I think in some ways that can interfere with the learning. So I think we need to look at that high school a little differently than the elementary and middle school. So that's one thing that I would recommend. The other thing is, I think one of the issues that schools are having are the earbuds. Those are huge issues now that weren't happening before. You can walk into a school, into a high school, and you see kids walking around with earpods, on their, like they're in the mall or something. I mean, it's like insane to me that they're walking around, and it's become a bigger and bigger issue with the earpods. And I think high school teachers are talking about that, principals are talking about that. So I think we need to kind of differentiate and talk about that as well. So that's kind of my first. I think we're going to spend a lot of time on this, and I want to make sure we get this right because this is a very, very important policy. This is something that impacts every single child, every single teacher, every single administrator. So I don't want to, I think we need to get this done, ready to go, so that way next year in the school year, we have a really strong policy. But I think it may take a couple times to get this exactly the way we need it. Thank you.
Mr. Washington?
Thank you. I think we all had some great comments on the cell phone. One of the things that I'm concerned with, and being a former administrator, when we make policies, it sounds great to set up here and say we can do this and do that, but we have to be able to man those policies. And when you man those policies, sometimes you put teachers and administrators on at point. So my suggestion is, and I'm just saying this for me, I think all schools are different. Some schools use cell phones and way more than other schools. I think it's a responsibility, give some responsibility, and I agree with the principal and the teachers at the school. Because when we set up here and make a policy, we try to make it one blank policy, and you can't do that because schools are different. Like I went into a school the other day, they didn't have no cell phones. I went to another school, kids did use cell phone, but they used it at the lunchtime. So everybody have their own unique way. So I suggest that we let the schools and the principals make that decision how they want to use it in their particular schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Well, first, thank you for Pablo for setting this up so that I could still participate without physically being there. Secondly, I appreciate all my fellow board members' comments about this. I really wanted to hear what a lot of my fellow board members said before asking some of my questions, because I have a lot of concerns about this policy, but I've gotten lots of feedback from our last time we brought this forward. So from the last time we brought this forward at the workshop, I had both teachers and parents reach out to me with questions and concerns to give me feedback on this. And obviously from the survey data, it's not 100%, but for most part, I feel like the more restrictions we put on cell phones, the more anxiety it causes around parents, specifically if they support their students emotionally. And if you look at the survey data, one of the questions I am going to ask is, it talks about how sometimes the cell phones are used medically. There was one parent who talked about how it monitors their child's glucose levels to make sure that if they're diabetic, they're not reaching a dangerous zone. There was another parent who talked about how the cell phone, her child has asthma, and it monitors their asthma and sends an alert if their breathing or heart rate has gone into a dangerous zone. So I think that, you know, the feedback that I've gotten specifically is the more restrictions we put on, the more concerned parents get. And I even had one parent when at one of my schools, Hill, became more restrictive with their cell phone policy, we're going to pull their child out of our school specifically and put them in a different option because they want it at the very least for them to have access to a smartphone to be able to reach them in cases of emergency. So I feel like, unfortunately, this policy kind of puts me at odds with what I'm hearing from parents and what I'm hearing from our teachers, specifically our teachers in elementary school. The feedback that I got from our last workshop is that teachers in elementary school specifically don't see a need for cell phones and we're comfortable with something as restrictive as this. But again, if we looked at the data as we get to middle and high school, it seems like people want a little less restriction on that. I also agree with my fellow board members, the comments that I hear, that I'm really supportive of schools having more autonomy to customize their electronic device policies based on their individual school. And I feel like one thing I've really enjoyed about Hillsborough and the way we've been very thoughtful in our policy making when it comes to even our library policies or all the other policies is allowing a lot of the concerns and decisions to be made at the local level when it comes to our individual schools. Now, that doesn't mean I'm against this policy in general, but I would like to see what work was done on it, but I do have some questions. From what I can gather, this policy is more restrictive from Pasco's policy. I did some research on what the board ended up actually passing, and they ended up passing where middle school were allowed to use it at lunch and high school was allowed to use it in the halls and at lunch. And I know that at first we were kind of modeling it at Pasco. Now it seems like we've shifted because their policy is less restrictive and are more modeling it on Orange County. But other than talking to one school board member, and I do appreciate that, and I do appreciate the feedback, have we talked to other counties that have implemented similar or different policies from the actual superintendent, the chief of schools, and gotten feedback on how it's worked and things that made it like the most successful? I can't hear anybody if somebody's answering that question.
I think the question is, has staff reached out to other school districts that have implemented something like this to see what the effects have been?
Ms. McCray, do you know if we've reached out to any?
So I have not personally reached out, but I can get with Supercat to see what work has been done. I do know that we do have a group of principals that are meeting, and we are looking at our entire student code of conduct, and cell phone policy is part of our existing code of conduct. So what we're going to do is we're going to take feedback from our board members today, listened to that feedback. We're also taking into consideration the survey that was done, and we actually have a meeting set up April 1st, which will be our second committee meeting for our student code of conduct, where we involve and engage our principals around some of these pain points so that we can come back with some language that combines some of the feedback from our principals as well as feedback from our board to help get to a finalized policy.
And I will note that Ms. Combs, Mr. Ayers said this, and Ms. Combs, playing off what she said, we've codified, we're having 3 policy cycles a year. This is a very important policy, and I think the feedback today we're not all done getting the feedback, is hugely important. And it might not be right to take to the public hearing, but that doesn't mean we couldn't do it in the next cycle. And Ms. Davis can give you dates on that. So it's, I think the feedback is excellent, and we appreciate getting more of that. So.
Okay, thank you. I have some additional questions, specifically how the policy outlines, all communication devices, not limited to phones. And that does bring up questions about smartwatches, because they would be included in this. And I know, personally for my son who's in 5th grade, he puts his smartwatch on school mode. He doesn't keep it on it. He puts it in his backpack because that's what we've requested. But for smartwatches that have that setting where once it puts it on that setting, isn't allowed to be a communication device, but simply gives them the time or might monitor something, are we deciding between do all smartwatches have to be put away, period, regardless of the mode setting that they're set on under this policy?
So, I would jump in. I would recommend if we write any policy around smartwatches, it would need to follow the same maybe philosophy that we use for headphones and earbuds, maybe kind of lumping those together just as a thought. Okay.
Jessica, this is Patty. In line 21 and 20 and 21, it does recognize that wireless communication devices include, but not limited to, cell phones and/or ancillary devices such as watches and earbuds. It doesn't limit it, but it identifies that we're not talking about just cell phones. And again, when I made reference, I have not spoken to other districts, but I made reference to the laws and how they could relate to this policy. And so in reference to what you're saying, if we made some of the changes I recommended, it would not be limited to a purse or a backpack. It would be limited to the authority of the principal and the teacher. And so each individual school or classroom could be able to accommodate the needs of different students. And also, Ms. Gray mentioned in this policy, she did address medical, and Ms. Combs, medical issues and some other things. So I think that they've done a good job of giving and stating that this is not a standard that we're going to also implement when it comes to students' health and safety. They give cause to that to make sure it's recognized that it would be a different policy based on medical or other needs, IEPs, 504s, emotional learning. So I think this policy does do that, as long as we don't get too specific, that we take the authority away from teachers and principals. If we allow this policy to stand as is and we don't do it per grade level, then we push it back to the district and we push it back to the student code of conduct and to the superintendent for them to make more procedures based upon individual school grade levels. And then we as a board have created a policy based upon the law and giving them the authority to take it more specifically for each individual school and grade level. So I hope that answers a little bit of your question, Jessica.
It does, and it actually brought me back to the point I was trying to make about the medical thing. Thank you, because I did see that. But the other point that I was going to make in regards to that were some of the parents in the data survey had indicated just anxiety, right? Or for a student on the spectrum, just having that cell phone device, knowing that communication option is there. And I guess my question is on or mental health. Someone just used the category mental health. So under those situations where they may not be something that's specific from a doctor's note or built into an IEP, those would not be covered, or we would not look at those for the medical exemptions. Is that correct?
Well, we need to get some control over this a little bit. We're in board comments. So Ms. Vaughn has the floor. I think the superintendent wants to respond to some of your questions. Then we need to get back in the queue. So,
Conversation, it's good. I think it's very healthy. That it's not a negative by any means.
Yeah, we just need to have some order to it, so I think the superintendent wants to speak.
Yeah, I just
so.
wanted to, I appreciate this policy, so I just want to kind of give it quickly the lay of the land, kind of currently what's happening within our schools. So elementary schools, for the most part, all that I'm aware of, cell phones are off before school, and they're basically not seen at all during the day and utilized after school for transportation purposes. So for elementary, during lunch, during passing periods, the cell phones are put away. In middle schools, there is a little bit of variance right now. So typically at middle, before and after, they're utilized. During lunch period, some of our middle schools have stricter policies around no cell phones during lunch. Some allow the cell phones during lunch. With our high schools, it's pretty consistent that for before and after school, they're allowed. During lunchtime, they're allowed. During passing periods, they're allowed as well. So our current way of work aligns with all some of Member Rendon's comments, all of our board member comments around really allowing schools to have the ability to put stricter policies and procedures in place. But I'm absolutely open to whatever policies created, then we go through and then create procedures around that for our schools to follow. I just wanted to give the lay of the land right now between elementary, middle, and high. So it doesn't need to be differentiated within this policy, but we could do so procedurally to kind of lay that out. But the only question would be around middle schools, because there are some middle schools now that allow it during lunchtime. But that again is leaving the control back at the site with the principal.
Yeah. So the original iteration that we did had differentiated between the 3 grade levels, and we can look at that and see if it makes sense to put it back in.
Yeah, because from what I'm understanding from this policy specifically, and I talked to Mr. Porter about this a little bit beforehand just to make sure I was understanding it correctly, that this does not allow you, the policy as written, if we pass this as a board, does not allow the superintendent that differential between high school to allow in the bathrooms. I mean, that's kind of part of my question is whatever rule or how you choose to implement this is so strong, it would not allow for that without breaking our own policy, from my understanding. So if that's something as a superintendent that you want to look at or recommend, I believe the wording on this has to be different before we pass it, because that's not my understanding of this policy. And then I just have 2 more questions and I can get back in the queue. So I'll leave that out there for you to digest if you want to respond to that. But I hear what we're saying, like if we pass this, it kind of goes under the student code of conduct as far as implementing it. But I'm just wondering, like, where it will actually fall if there's pushback against this policy. Like, are our teachers the ones who are really going to be then more in charge of this? Is this going to then, because it becomes a board policy, be more up to the principals if the rules are consistently broken? Is this going to go to chief of schools? Like, where is the emphasis now? If we make a more restrictive policy, where does that implementation really fall? Or again, are we just thinking that's going to fall up to individual schools based on how they implement it? I guess I'm trying to understand who the push of really, putting out this policy and monitoring it, where the heavy lift is going to go. Is that going to go on the backs of our teachers? And then if no one's prepared to answer that one yet, the additional question I had actually was for Member Gray. I know that you had, in your opening comments, talked about, I could have heard wrong because I'm remotely, but 5,000 fights directly resulting from cell phone usage. Was that data that you got specifically to Hillsborough County? Was that a Florida data point that you pulled? And then how did we verify that? Was that in a referral from the fight, or where did we get that data? I'm just trying to understand where that data point came from.
That came from Joshua Crystal's office, and the fighting from electronic misuse. There's a category that labels the direct correlation of cell phone usage to fighting incidents. Came from that office, and the second year, the 2023 to 2024, up to March 14th, also. Those are actual statistics, and I will be happy to share the chart, which Joshua also has shared with me. So I'm just going to answer the question.
Specific to Hillsborough County, based on the data from Josh Crystal
is in charge of the district.
And did I get that number right? Did you say somewhere in 5,000? Did I hear that correctly?
Okay, the amount in 2022 to 2023, the grand total, and this, and keep this in mind too, starts at kindergarten. Believe it or not, we had 2 fights. 5,639 for the school year of last year, and this school year still trending now because this stops at March 14th. We are at, and we actually had a fight in, well, preschool, but 5,252. So it really starts swelling. The statistics of fighting and electronic usage start swelling in grade 3. And there's 86. And then last school year in grade 3 there was 147. But mind you, the year's not done yet. So I would expect more of a rise from this. And the other statistics I shared came from Claire Reynolds from the Crisis Center here in Tampa Bay. And the only statistics that I did share that were not directly related to Hillsborough County was the bill, the Florida statute 1006.07, and the House bill, as you know, 3. But all the other statistics came from Hillsborough County or addressed to Hillsborough County. So that's that.
I appreciate that clarity. Thank you so much. And then my one last comment was, and I might have missed it. I mean, I thought I read it pretty clearly, but there's nothing specifically about filming fights in general, because I know there's a lot of anxiety about that. I know when we did Ought to Be a Law, the students had brought forward a policy specifically around the filming of fights and concern that that was glorifying the fights or adding or contributing. There's nothing specifically in this policy that addresses that piece. I saw a lot around, pornography and sexing and concerns about, victimizing our students. But did I miss something around fights specifically?
There's nothing specific about fights, but we can look at that.
Okay. Thank you very much. If I have any other questions, I'll get back in the queue. I appreciate it.
Okay. Ms. Perez?
Thank you. Before I start on my comments, I just need some clarity on something that Member Gray said. With the DNF schools. You mentioned that by passing this policy that there's a potential of our DNF schools raising their grades?
That is from a teacher's point of view. Member Perez. Whoops, sorry. That's not based on, that's a point of view that I would say as a teacher of 4 decades, that when a child is listening and looking at a cell phone versus their textbook or transparency overhead, the chances of them absorbing the information to absorb correctly the information, say a math problem, is very much mitigated by cell phone dominance. And so therefore, I would say, my own point of view, this is based on my own experience, and this is anecdotal, I would say my students who didn't have the use of cell phones, except for maybe a lesson, who are looking at fights or who are looking at body parts, would do less academically than if they didn't have that. So yes, that's my premise as well.
The majority of our DNF schools are in low social economic areas where the majority of our students do not have access to these cell phones or even, but I'm going to leave that there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So I'm going to say this. There's nothing here that addresses emergency issues. Unfortunately, I was part of a panel and had the unfortunate pleasure of sitting down and speaking with Uvalde folks, the mental health main contact for the entire district there in Uvalde. Right now we have 11 school shootings a year, and that is from elementary to high school, as we all know. Pardon me? No, I didn't say in Hillsborough, but just yes, not in Hillsborough. But part of the parents' anxiety nowadays is sending their child to school and not being able to communicate with them. once those children are out of their parents' view, they want to know that they can communicate with their children. And as I have spoken with parents, as a mental health professional, that's what they have espoused to me. There has been 394 school shootings since Columbine, and it has affected 360,000 students. So, I saw nothing here that addresses emergencies at all. I have seen where the students leave it in their backpacks or away from their person, but nothing to address an emergency situation whatsoever. And let's be transparent. Emergencies happen. And our parents want to know that they could communicate with their children when emergencies happen. One of the things that we talked about on that panel with Uvalde was the fact that children were able to, unfortunately, speak with their parents before they passed. So what are we putting in place in here for emergencies? But also, one of our board members mentioned about issues with medical. Both our cell phones and our smartwatches monitor, issues with hearts. I know I have AFib, and my smartwatch monitors me constantly. And it will let me know if I need to call, and it also alerts my doctor. So I'm just curious, if the child has to take off their smartwatch, if the child has no access to their phone, so these two things, in emergency situations, what have we done to address this in this policy?
So those are good questions. Let me hit the medical one first. On lines, we do address medical conditions, and Ms. Vaughn pointed out that we might need to revisit that. But on lines 22 to 24, if there's a medical condition and the device is being used for that. But I think, to your point, to Ms. Vaughn's point, that needs to be tightened up a little bit. But it's there. We have not addressed emergency situations. We absolutely can. It's implied that if the cell phone is on their person but powered down in an emergency situation, they could access them and power it up. But I understand your point, and we're happy to take a look at coming up with language that would specifically address it, not just have it implied. So I think those are very good points.
Thank you.
Okay. I will say I talked to Dr. Hahn this morning. She had no issues with any of the policies. The queue now is Ms. Gray, and then Ms. Rendon, and then Ms. Combs.
And I think we all certainly enjoyed the discussion and the input. Member Perez, the emergency, I know, and this is more of a glorified global statement here, I know that we had a town hall at Newsom High School about emergency, what are we doing for safety? And I know Centegix, we all are familiar with that. That's we invested millions of dollars in that, and our resource officers. But parents wonder what happens if my child, if we have a school shooting, right? And how do I make sure my child is safe? Well, what we can't say and what we could not say, and Chief Newman, you can remark, is a lot of those safety techniques or those, and I don't even know if I'm allowed to tell you some of this because we're in public, but there's measures within the school building that make this campus, every campus, one of the safest that we can possibly make. And I'm staring at Chief Newman because there's a button you can press on the Centegix for emergencies. And I don't know whether we're doing a great job, Superintendent Van Ayers, to share with the parents what we do have in terms of making these schools safe. Because we can say it from the board, and I can say a little bit about school cameras and resource officers, but parents still wonder. So that's a nagging concern, Member Perez, and thank you for mentioning that. When we talk about, Member Vaughn, the medical, that's the first thing we always look at, because if you remember, when I discuss the medical conditions of our children, third grade, 50% of them have a chronic disease, such as diabetes, obesity, asthma. And so it begs the question, what happens if we have a medical emergency? And that's where Mr. Porter, we put in line 22, 23, 24, students may not receive discipline if they use their cell phone and/or auxiliary device to monitor a health condition that is documented through the medical records, as it should be. Every nurse, school nurse, it's required by Florida statute to have a background of vaccinations, of their health conditions, and certainly that documentation would be covered within a policy. The idea that are we too strict? Are we too Orange County? And I would suggest, and I would say that was one heck of a courageous move. Maybe other descriptors would be more or less flattering. But when you look at the statistics that I shared, and these are not made up, these are from national centers, from our own school staff, it begs each of us the question, what should be done? Should we just keep it as it is? Superintendent Van Ayers, you mentioned, well, middle school is different than high school. Well, and I also counted with saying that the age now begins, much of it, I even gave statistics, first, second, third grade. We have Disney porn going on in many of our elementary schools. Disney porn, you go on the site, it looks very friendly. It's a Disney character. But those are nefarious sites that will start getting the student groomed, and then they become more desensitized to more sexual ovations. I don't know how else to tell you this, but this is, in my mind, the world that we see with our teenagers, one of the highest suicide rates, the highest amount of fighting, the highest amount of bullying. I mean, we have to do something in terms of helping our children, because if it's from the cell phones, which the Florida statute, the House Bill 3, TikTok, all of this is out there. If they're saying yes and they're starting to make laws, I say this to us, why don't we be proactive and make our district more let's just say, aware that we need to protect our children. And that's what this is coming from. So all these remarks are very good, they're very valid, but I will say I don't want to go as far as saying, oh, elementary school do this, middle school, and high school. I will say high school is a different, but then again, the suicide rate is very, very high in high school. So we got to be careful with that, and the average age now has dropped from 13 to 10 years old. So separating grade levels, I'm listening, but I don't know if that is, I mean, what students should have a cell phone that is in kindergarten or second grade, third grade, fourth grade? What are they doing? So the other thing, too, that I wanted to say, earbuds, and that's a good point, because earbuds are included, and that should be, that's on line, what line was that on, Jim? We have earbuds
we include earbuds,
listed.
yes. It's defined on line 46 and 47. So
that's included. But the student code of conduct and your articulation, Shay McCray, it's very important that you're talking to the principals. Why this is coming forth? Because the principals say, Lynn, finally we have a relief, because we're always fighting against the parents because we don't have a policy. And they want something to protect, a barrier to protect them from parent saying, I have to have that smartwatch. The student might be in third or fourth grade. So, the policy has to protect the principals. Now, teachers. How much more can we ask of teachers? All right, so let's go ahead and give them some more rules. If you teach a class, and I've taught just about every grade except for sixth grade, I don't know how a teacher can do anything more in their day, teach a lesson, and then be with a cell phone watch. I mean, it's enormous what they have to do already. So I don't know how that works or looks like, but I do say, and we added this to it, the principal should have that right, that discretion as to how they want to enforce or manage more restrictive cell phone usage. But giving it to the teachers, I think, is a very dangerous way of saying to teachers, now, here's more referral slips. Make sure, because that again is the relationship between student and teacher is very precious. Anytime you write a referral, you lose a lot of the trust. And it's hard for us to imagine what trust does for a student wanting to learn. But if you don't have a trustful relationship of the students in class, and 2 or 3 of them are going to act out, and before you know it, you don't have a class that you own. They own you. So I agree with the sentiments, definitely do. But I also think it should be subjugated to the principals, not to the teachers. So, no, I think every one of the comments are very well said and fit completely into the contours. And Superintendent Van Ayers, you have procedures.
Yep.
You will make it to where every one of the board members asks, will make it work. So thank you.
Okay, Ms. Rendon?
Yeah, thank you for all the comments. Ms. Gray, in your original thing before I asked to add in the admin, you have all the responsibility on the teachers in your proposal.
Yeah.
So by me adding admin staff, it would give more support to the teachers and not take away from that.
Good.
Also, when you limited the backpacks and the purses, it gave more opportunities for referrals than for a teacher to create whatever was best for her classroom. And so I think that's where my changes gave the authority to start it up without having to have more referrals. I also want to make sure that we recognize the fact, and I want to reiterate it once again, our IT department has done an excellent job in making sure when you are in our schools, you are not able to access these sites because our Wi-Fi will limit it. You do not have that ability. Ms. Gray, these have to be some things that we as a district do not take on the responsibility of a parent. Parents have the responsibility to identify the devices they choose to give their children. We have the authority to, within their on our property, to manage them. And that's what we're talking about, creating a policy to manage devices on our property. We are doing that for the safety of our children through our IT department, through Gaggle, through our security departments. So I don't want to give parents in this workshop the thought that we're handing out porn to children. We are not doing that. We are not allowing them to access these sites on property. If they're doing that, they're doing it at their home. They're doing it off of our campuses. They're not accessing our Wi-Fis. It is critically important to make that distinction that we as a district have done that. The other thing I want to make sure that the data that we're using through this survey went out in the fall. It went out in September and October after I held a parent forum, and we extended it out to the entire district for comment. When Mr. Ayers, Superintendent Ayers, refers to the fact that our changes have occurred within our schools, that was new this year for elementary schools not to have cell phones out during the year. This was new this year that most of our middle schools are limiting our cell phone use in only lunchtime and before and after school, and then our high schools. And again, that's not consistent, but it's different. So I think if we were to ask a parent today or maybe next September how they felt, they may not even know that students aren't even having them in front of them during their elementary school time. I think we need to keep that in mind as we move forward. I also want to make sure that we give the authority after the policy, that our policy follows the law, and that the details beyond this are what the district, the superintendent, our district officials, our principals, and our teachers have the authority to use, because that is what we as a board have the obligation to govern, not dictate. And I think that's very critically important to understand. I think, Ms. Gray, the way in which you worded 90% of this is excellent. I think it does address when there's medical concerns, and again, you put it back on the teacher and the principal. That hugely allows them to have flexibility, because like Ms. Perez says, anxiety is a true mental health condition, and it may need to be addressed through a 504 plan, and that may be that the cell phone sits on their lap or on their desk or whatever it looks like. This gives flexibility to a teacher, to a principal, to staff to be able to do what's best for a student and then emergency needs. So I think we take this and we make some changes and we allow the district to move forward with more specifics per their schools.
Thank you. Ms. Combs?
Thank you very much. I think one of the things I would love to ask is really the superintendent and his staff on how they feel and what they think about this. I think one of the things, a couple things. I personally think that we do have to have some kind of differentiation with the elementary, middle school, and high school. I think it just gives more clarity because I think it can be very vague then. And I think when we talk about consistency, that we want consistency, we want the principals to be in charge, but we'd like to have consistency along the middle schools. Like if someone's at Webb Middle School and they go to Davidson Middle School, I would like to see there's consistency, that there's not, that they're not using their phones during lunchroom. Now, when you look at the law that just was passed, really students shouldn't have their cell phones in middle school. If you think about that, we're really possibly, going to break the law if a child is on social media in middle school at lunch and using their phone, then we're breaking the law in school. So I personally think that we should really be much more strict in elementary and middle school and differentiate. And I would like to do the high school, but I'd like to wait a little bit and have some of these restrictions that would be guided, and let's see how that goes. So that way we really fully have that. That way we're kind of moving towards success instead of just reacting and doing something. So that's my first thing. Second part is when we talk about mental health, I appreciate that all the health is included in here, making sure if you have an IEP or a 504, you can't have a phone. But at the end of the day, phones really increase mental health issues, increase anxiety. Over and over, 99% of students have an increase in anxiety when they use the phone. It doesn't decrease anxiety. There are some students who have to have phones because it is like a safety or things like that. And that's what 504s and IEPs are for. But for students, phones do increase anxiety. And then the other thing I was going to say, and I've always thought about this when we talk about phones and emergencies, they should be in a backpack or wherever it is. I've always thought that, when there is an accident or is a school shooter, one of the things that we do is go in a hard corner, and are quiet, and we're really quiet, and phones should be powered down. Like, think about that. If the phones are on and parents are calling constantly, what does that allow someone to know where kids are placed in a school, where kids are placed as far as hiding to make sure that they're protected? I've always thought about that. When a school shooter comes on and parents know and phones are being called and someone's hiding in a closet, what happens with things like that? So when we talk about emergencies, I think a child needs to be able to grab the phone and use it, but having a phone on, what is that going to do as far as school safety? We have to look at it from both sides. And finally, as more and more time goes by, you're going to see more and more young students with these iPhone watches in kindergarten and first grade. The amount of cheating that is happening with students, like academic cheating, is unbelievable that's happening. And so with more and more, I went to a school the other day and I saw a kindergartner with an iPhone watch. So I thought to myself, it's just going to become more and more prevalent as prices go down and it becomes more available. So we need to be ahead of this instead of behind this, because as every year you're seeing more and more students use phones, iPhones, iPads, and it's just become, a way of life.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Vaughn?
Thank you. I appreciate, again, all my fellow board members' comments. I think this is good. Member Gray, I appreciate the urgency that you see from the data and what you're learning to protect our kids, and that comes through in this policy, and I understand your motivation behind it. But I do still have some questions. Again, it's kind of going back and forth to the medical mental health piece, and, does that mean if there are instances where students rely on communication with their parents at some point for their mental health or to keep them on track on something, that then this will be another piece that parents have to make sure that they advocate for the IEP and what that looks like. So I still have questions. Like, I understand that, we're saying maybe in situations, depending how it's used for more typical kids, cell phones can cause anxiety. But again, all of our students are different. And just as we differentiate lessons and academic material, I want to make sure that we're differentiating this policy to support all of our students as far as their needs. So I think there's still a lot of work to be done on that piece specifically. Also, Member Rendon, I appreciate you making the point about this concern about Disney porn that's been brought up several times as being referenced as being in a lot of our elementary school classrooms. And, I was also under the impression that as a district, aside from this policy, we have the ability to block those sites and put stricter restrictions on that. So as opposed to putting that question back to Member Gray, is there someone from IT that can verify that we don't allow our students to access pornography from our classrooms, even on their devices? And then I have one more question about the parental rights around this moving forward and that law. But if we have any feedback around, because it is concerning that I keep hearing that our elementary school students are in a lot of elementary classrooms accessing Disney porn. Is that true?
That is so, Member Vaughn. That is not true. So I want to go back to our elementary schools. Our way of work right now in all of our elementary schools is those cell phones are put away before they get to school, and they are out of sight the entire school day until after school. So those are decisions made by our principals. Our cell phones. Student cell phones are out of sight in backpacks the entire school day in elementary. So to answer your question specifically, no, they are not accessing any of those sites.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then lastly, my question, I guess, would probably be, more for Mr. Porter or for Ms. Davis around this. But I know that we've been referencing, or Member Gray at one point referenced, like, the recent social media legislation that was just passed and the governor signed yesterday with some amendments. But I've been hearing that does violate some of the parental rights laws that have been previously passed by legislation, and there is anticipation there might be some challenges around this in general. And I know that, at the state level, we're still trying to see how that all works out. So I'm curious, in just legal standards, if we were to implement something like this at the district level, does it in any way, shape, or form make us more liable for potential lawsuits that would be empowered by, the parental rights legislation that happened a few years ago, and what our thought processes are on that? Because again, one of the things that I think protects us and I value is the ability to make some of these decisions at a school site specifically. So that is all of my thoughts and my questions. Thank you.
Let me just say, Ms. Vaughn, thank you for the question. No, that would not, that legislation with social media would not impact this. I mean, I think this is dealing with electronic or cell phones and other electronic devices. To the extent that students are accessing social media, whatever way that they access them, is sort of a sidebar to the main policy. So this is done specifically accordance to Florida statutes, and we would be in line with that. So that would not impact your ability to pass a policy on this.
Even if the state policy was challenged under some of their previous legislation.
I don't think they would be challenging it on a different one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all the questions and comments that I have at this time. I look forward to seeing if this changes and if we have another workshop or what comes in front of us at a board meeting. Thank you.
I have Ms. Gray next, and then Mr. Washington, and then the chair will wrap it up. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. I'm quite sure we got to have a few people in the audience concerns too, but what is our goal? Is it our goal to not have cell phones or have cell phones? Because I'm sitting here as a school board member, former administrator for 40-some years, and I'm kind of confused a little bit. Because we have policies in place, we just have to follow the policy. We have to deal with society the way it is. So we're either going to have it or not have it or critique it the way it should be. That's what I'm looking for. So Can somebody give me some answers on that? I think that would be more efficient than just talking about what we're going to do or what we want to do. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
I think the intent of the policy would be to not allow cell phones during instructional time. That's consistent with your current policy and with state law. And then it's about the details of how it's enforced. So the goal would be no cell phones during school. That's the overall reaching goal, but with a lot of details to be worked out. That's what I'm hearing, and I think that was the intent of the policy.
Yeah. And if I can, I mean, our current policy as it exists right now, we are operating within that policy. And right now, there are no cell phones that are out in elementary during the school day, that it's off, out of sight the entire day. In our middle schools, same thing. They're utilized a little bit different. In middle, it's before and after they can utilize them. We do get some differentiation in middle schools. Some allow them during lunch, some don't. But that goes back to Member Rendon's point of allowing the school administrator to make those particular decisions. High school, we're pretty consistent. And I have Mr. Brady here as well if you have any questions. High school is pretty consistent that before and after school they can utilize them, and our high schools allow them during lunchtime and during passing periods. So within our current policy that we have different procedures that are in place at our different levels. So thank you for bringing that up, because I do want to, I want to land the plane on this because we have a way of work that we are following within our current policy. I think the new policy, the way it's written, still allows us to continue our way of work that we're in. But I do want to wrap this thing up at some point.
So Ms. Gray and then the chair, and then I think
Mr. Porter, do you want to give Mr. Washington exactly what the law states that our responsibility is?
we can provide that, yeah.
Okay, so it does in current law, House Bill 379 from last year, 2023 legislative year. It prohibits student use of wireless communication devices during instructional time, providing an exception requiring a teacher or designated in an area for wireless communication devices during instructional time, provide an effective date. So the policy would relate back to this in a matter of how we are utilizing communication devices or wireless communication devices, and it gives a flexibility during instructional time. So I think that's the key part of this.
So we got the policy and they got the law, we just got to make it work.
Yeah, we got to conform it.
Get it done.
Yeah.
But that's the end of the day, we need to get it done.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Member Washington, it's very important. The consideration when this was written was under the legal premises of Florida Statute 1003.42, 1006.09, 1006.1494. This was done in the effort to make it consistent with the trend of the Florida statutes that's coming down. Also, I want to make a remark. When we have reaction suddenly, this is coming from, I have all the supporting bills from 2022 to up to the House Bill 3. This was not a sudden reaction. This has been, I mean, the committee I have on social online safety, we've been meeting for 6 years. There's no sudden reaction here. And the problem that, even though we say nothing's happening in elementary, I dispute that. I dispute that because I know very much what's going on. I have 2 elementary grandkids, and not to mention the statistics from our human trafficking committee. Disney porn? No, we should never say no one, nothing, or never, because that's never an answer. So we don't know if anyone, but it's never say no one, because that's not true with Disney porn. And that's not the only site. I just mentioned that, and I don't also like the word a lot. I'm not. If I use the word a lot, that's too nebulous, and shame on me. I should have the actual statistics, but I don't. So we have increased suicide. We have increased fighting. Those are statistics. We have increased anxiety. We have increased human trafficking. So what do? And we have laws now that support the change. So that we either can premise and ignore and let things just keep going as it is, with the statistics that obligate us as human beings to care and to safeguard the well-being of every child, or let's just let those statistics keep increasing. And I just don't. I'm just not, as a individual board member, and thank you, Member Rendon, also for supporting it. I feel like this is a call to action, and it's taken me more than a year to bring a lot of this followed. So that's the end of that. I'm done. Thank you.
So, Ms. Perez, you want to wrap it up, and then we can hear from the superintendent and for next steps.
Yeah. To provide some stats, in 1999 to 2021, the rates of children from age 10 to 17 were on the increase. And then in 21, it decreased by 5%, and then it went back up to 37%, just to provide some stats regarding our suicide rates and our 10 to 17-year-olds. But Superintendent, I just want to ask a question. I know that Member Gray talked about the our protections for our students in their schools, and I get that we have, after what happened here in Florida with the mass shooting, that we did, get in place and really protect our students. But with our students, our parents just want to be able to hear from their kids. I get that the teachers are able to call, our teachers are able to secure, and our schools have a system in place. But what I was speaking to is the student, okay? So can we place something into this regarding the student as far as in case of an emergency?
Yeah, I have no problem working with staff to have some addition, working with Mr. Porter around students. Because remember, our students have, when they bring their cell phone to school, they're in their backpack turned off. So we can write some type of policy working along with Mr. Porter in addition to this in case of emergencies, and working with Chief Newman as well. Yeah, make it simple.
Did you have any other comments?
So so give me direction. My understanding is this policy, with some of the changes that Member Rendon brought forward and some of the other comments from board members, this policy will be moving forward. And then on our end, our staff side, we will then just work procedures around the policy that's written. I just want to bring clarity to that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, we'll do so. Done.
Good. I'm sorry. Good. So you'll be working on the consequences, because I have concerns about the consequences too.
Yeah, that'll be part of the student code of conduct.
Oh, okay.
And which we can bring both the policy
Okay.
and the reference in the student code of conduct, we can bring that together so that you see it side by side.
Good. I like to see
Yes.
that. Okay, thank you.
Good. Okay. Well, board members, thank you for all your comments. This was very, very helpful, and we'll be bringing back the finished policy. Oh. Okay. Good job.
So we'll be moving on. So, Ms. Davis, if you have we'll move forward in the, I think we have how many, 6
Yes.
or 7, 8
Thank you.
left to go. So we should be able to move through these policy revisions.
Yes, and
I
actually,
think Ms.
Colleen Fawcett, if you're,
Ms. Fawcett's up.
our Chief of Academics, she's going to start us on. If you're ready, we'll go ahead and move on to policy 2131 if everybody's ready. Maybe, maybe not.
Yes, we could go on.
Thank you. All right. All right, Ms. Fawcett, if you'll go ahead and get started.
Sure,
Just with
absolutely.
2131, and we'll go
Good
through.
morning, and I'm glad I've had the opportunity to talk to the board members ahead of time about these policies. I think I pressed the button.
It is. It's correct.
Did I press the button?
It is.
I'm going to start again. I'm glad I had the opportunity prior to today to talk to all the board members to answer any questions they had before this morning. We have 5 policies from Academic Services. Policy number 2131. This is a policy that is just a revision. The language in the policy talks about progress towards mastery of the next generation Sunshine State standards. Those of you who have been in education for a while understand that the state changes standards and benchmarks on a pretty regular cadence. And so rather than continuing to update the policy and change the name every time the district changes the name, we've just modified that to say the current adopted Florida standards and or benchmarks so that we're always covered with that.
I have a question on that. We've left the law as it is in Florida Statute 1008.31. However, I do believe as of last year, Rep. Trabolsky's law did update some of those standards. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am. We'll be sure that the reference is in here.
Okay, so we need to make sure the reference changes for the law is different than what, or additional to, because some of those new laws are effective in this policy.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. If there's, Member Perez, if it's all right, we'll go ahead and keep on moving. 2210, curriculum development.
So 2210, once again, it's a change just to kind of comply with where the statutes and rules are right now. On line 17 and 18, the state directives and guidance to us talk about the K-12 comprehensive reading plan. Due to the implementations with the science of reading and other initiatives, that language is now the evidence-based comprehensive reading plan, which that CERP is also funding that comes into the district to support that plan. So that's just an update of language.
Y'all are going to change that statute too, right?
Yes. Did you write that down too? Okay.
All right. Colleen, if you want to go ahead and do driver's ed.
Absolutely. 2432 is regarding our driver's ed program, and I invite Ashley Capucci, who supervises that program, to come up and join if there's any questions. Is one of these you? No? So this is a policy that we've had in place, and it was recently updated in 21. And this is on line 6, where we are making a change regarding when we can charge for our driver's ed program. I'll let Ashley talk about this just for a little bit.
Sure. So our continuing contract that we had with driver's education with the Department of Highway Safety, it used to have like a continuing contract, and in 2021 they no longer make us have a continuing contract. So every 3 years our district and our teachers have to recertify. So contractually they fill out a contract because each of them are DLAP certified, and DLAP stands for Driver Licensing Assistance Program. So what that does is it makes it so that students who are taking our driver's education course, they can bypass a lot of the requirements because they've taken our course when they go to the DMV. So through the contracts, our teachers apply, and so the updated contract in 2021 said we cannot charge any fee or take any gratuities for students. And so I can answer additional questions on anything else that you all want.
And so those charges would be for during the school year. We would continue to charge during the summer program. And we do have that Dory Schlossberg Grant Fund, which does bring money into the district to kind of offset that cost that we would be charging students for gas, the certification fees, maintenance of the vehicles, those types of things.
All right. And with permission, Member Perez, may we finish the last two academic services while we have Colleen up here? So we'll jump to 5114, and then you can do 5420.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So 5114 literally is just a title change. As my team and I were reading through all of the policies, just to kind of get a reference to where academic services sits within those policies. This policy stood out because it's called foreign students. And so really to have some alignment between, who are we talking about? Are we talking about immigrant student, migrant students? It's not until reading the policy that you actually understand we're talking about foreign exchange students. And so that just provides clarity in our table of contents to any readers.
All right.
And the last
Okay,
policy
thank you.
is 5420. On line 9, we're just adding and/or electronic reports. This policy talks about the board directs the establishment of a system of reporting student progress, which shall include written reports. Our report cards are available to students and parents through the portal, but we certainly provide printed out copies if a parent requests that.
All right, and I did want to point out with Member Fawcett to the board here that the reason why these are being brought forward is because of your due diligence and requests that we continually review policies, and that's something that Ms. Fawcett and her team have been doing and will be doing. So the next cycle you will see more. Yep. All right.
Thank you.
Ms. Fawcett.
All right, and we will go ahead and if we can go back up to our 3 ESC policies, 2460, 2460.01.
Member Rendon had a
I'm
comment.
sorry. I apologize.
It's okay, I'll say afterwards.
Yes, we'll go ahead and do 2460 if you're ready for that. Ms. Sushmitz. Thank you, Shannon. I know we got your. There we go. Press the button. There
Okay, policy 2460 has been updated to reflect some legislative and state statute changes since 2014. We also updated the language to be consistent with the IDEA language in our state policy and procedures. This is a policy that outlines our district obligation for exceptional student education. So the first change, other than just some language change, would be under C, line 25 to 27, and we just aligned some language with the IDEA and our state policies and procedures. A line that goes all the way to 61. And then if you look at starting line 74, we've added additional language, including Florida required parent consent. So the Florida state law has layered onto the IDEA for our students with disabilities who are recommended to take an alternate assessment or be placed in an exceptional student education center. So Florida requires that we have parent consent to do that, with the exception of if you are placed in an interim alternative placement due to discipline for no more than 45 days. And then line number 93 on is new language around the revision to the Florida state statute around private instructional personnel. So this is probably the largest, newest part. This private instructional personnel who are hired by parents through their private insurance, this just outlines the rules and regulations around that. We added, or the state had added RBTs to the list of folks who could be serving our children in our public school through the parent request. It does outline that this cannot interfere with FAPE, and that the student's public instructional personnel and principal have to consent on the time and place of where those services will be provided. And all of those personnel have to be yellow badge, they have to be a vendor. E, least restrictive environment, that was policy 2460.01, which we have deleted and just added it here. It didn't really make sense to have a separate policy, so we just deleted it from there and added it here. Lines number 169 to 172 was just, we added to align with our SP&Ps. And then participation in state and district assessment, we had some new state board rules that we had to address. So if you look at lines number 2, starting at 205 all the way down, this is updated information stating that students have to participate in state assessments, but if it's not a good measure of their ability, then the students are entitled to a waiver. It also adds the information about extraordinary exemptions, and that they have to be submitted to the commissioner for approval. We have two kinds of those exemptions. We have a medical complexity exemption, which can be granted for 1, 2, 3, or permanently, and then we have the 1-year extraordinary exemption. And the superintendent can grant a 1-year exemption if there was a medical incident that were to occur during that 60 days that we have to submit it to the commissioner. So you have to submit it 60 days prior to the assessment, but if something were to happen to a student that they needed that, our superintendent could grant that for 1 year. And that is it for 2460. 2460.01, that's the one that had the LRE that we have deleted, and then we added it to 2460. 2623, this is some change in wording to reflect person first language and to address new components of a state board rule around statewide assessments for students with disabilities. So all the lines between 53 and 64 are new language. So this is in response to the federal requirement of 1%, meaning that no more than 1% of our students with disabilities can be on an alternate assessment. It includes the unique accommodations that they needed to be submitted to the Florida Department of Ed and approved by the commissioner. It also includes language around the criteria for participation in the alternate assessment. So this requires the IEP to put in like a checklist that outlines the criteria for a student being identified to be on alternate assessment, and the student has to meet all of the criteria, including a new criteria which says that the cognitive score has to be in the first percentile. So you could have a student who's intellectually disabled, but if they're not in that first percentile, then they could be they would not be eligible for alternate assessment and would be required to be on our regular standards and take the regular assessment. It also says that all students have to be exposed to our general ed curriculum with accommodations for 2 FTE periods before they can be considered for an alternate assessment. So that is where we updated that language.
So this happened this week. I have a young man who has autism, and he is like genius, but he has autism and needs those supports. What happens with that?
Are you referring to the alternate assessment?
Mm-hmm.
So if he or she is not in that first percentile, they wouldn't meet the criteria to be measured on an alternative assessment. And he wouldn't be eligible to be taught on the access points. He would have to be given the regular standards with accommodations and modifications and expected to take the regular assessment.
Member Rendon, I think Member Rendon, you have a question? Sorry. Please. Okay, sorry.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment that before we get these policies to us, we make sure we update all the Florida statutes on these policies. I did see that on the ESE ones, and I appreciate that very much. When it comes to this last one that we just talked about, the 1%, by the way, is 67%, 67 IQ and below is where that threshold falls. So anyone with a 67, 68, and 69 are going to be in the 1%. Florida is one of very few states that do not have the waiver for that 1%, which makes a significant difference with our graduation rates, with our alternative assessments, with our alternative educations. And so I think that is something our district needs to champion and look at, because we do have that is that gap of severe where the federal government recognizes that person has a developmental disability, and yet we as a state do not have the waiver to allow that to them to have the accommodations they require. And so she is correct in making sure that our policies fit in, but I do want to make sure we publicly mention that is something we should be championing as a district on a federal level. And it is something that, quite frankly, our federal legislators really don't understand and don't know and recognize, and we are continually working on that. Also, I do want to make note that I don't see anywhere in our previous policy that we talked about, and let me know if it's in the wrong place, 2460, in which we say, especially during our IEP meetings, that we are required, and as part of our policy, to make sure that we are educating our students during the IEPs, no later than 12 years old, on future plans and services that are available to them. That is part of Florida statute that I do not see in here unless I missed it.
No, I don't believe it's in this policy.
Okay, so I think
it's part of the IEP, yes.
Yeah, that's part of the IEP process. So if we could look at making sure that we accommodate that in here as one of those statutes. But I think, again, going back to our students, these policies are very critical to make sure that we do that. The other thing is, when we're talking on line item 94, we specifically say who is hired or contracted by the parent. These services in which these outside vendors are going to be coming into our schools, they are not contracted or hired by our parents. So that's what we need to change that language. They're actually hired by either insurance companies, they're hired by the state of Florida, they're hired through Medicaid, but they're not hired by our parents or contracted with.
And I believe, this is right from the statute. We pulled the language right from the statute.
So then we need to make sure that where our policies are, we allowing people that are not contracted with our employees, because I think that's a distinction, or what does the definition of contract say? because I think that's critical that we take a look at that again. Because I believe the reason and the purpose of the statute was to allow, if somebody is receiving services, ABA therapy through state Medicaid plan, that and we do not have an ABA providing it within our schools, but yet it's on our IEP to have an ABA, we could bring an outside ABA that is providing that service to the individual outside. That ABA would not be contracted by the parent. They would not be hired by the parent. It would actually be, basically it's a memorandum of agreement that that provider is being utilized through a service. So I think I want to make sure we firm up that language so that we give parents flexibility, but yet making sure the way in which we word it, I appreciate the fact that our school staff are involved in that decision. It's critically important for the success of the student that everybody from their circle of supports are on the same page.
Right. So I think just to clarify, this particular statute is for services requested by the parent. If it's something that's in the IEP that we're saying the student requires and needs, then that's something we have to provide. This particular statute is for parents who, I believe it was intended because there's only so many slots of therapy after school, right? And so kids can be excused absence for going to therapy, but I believe this was trying to help with getting some of that therapy during the day so that kids could have therapy at school versus just not in the clinical setting. So this particular statute isn't really about the IEP. It's about parents wanting that therapy at school and not necessarily after school in a clinical setting. But the hours that they are granted through their private insurance, like some insurance companies will approve, 40 hours, some are, less than that. And then the procedure that we have is the parent comes to the principal and says, I would like my therapy at school, and they sit down and have a collaborative meeting. We have a form that the vendor has to sign, the parent has to sign, and the principal signs agreeing to when and where that will be delivered that will not impede FAPE, and what hours that will be.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, but that's not what the policy says, because under here, a student's IEP shall be reviewed and revised as often as necessary, but at least annually, district personnel will collaborate with private instructional personnel. That does sound like it's part of the IEP, and quite frankly, if we're going to have outside personnel in there, it should be on the IEP.
Well, if a parent has, say, a private BCBA that they're working with or an RBT, when we come to the table, the parent has the right to include that outside member so that our strategies align. I mean, that just makes sense, right? That whatever we're doing in school and the parents are doing out of school, we don't want our strategies to conflict. That'd be very confusing for the students. So they are encouraged to be part of that IEP team meeting, and that's part of the statute says that they can collaborate with us, they can observe the student, and they can provide services in the school. So it's the 3 parts of the PIP part.
Ms. Rendon, I'm sorry. May I ask if it would be clearer if we delineated in the document itself and the policy itself when it's referring to when the parent requests as opposed to when it's a part of the IEP? Would it be easier if we clarified in just the way we've laid it out in the policy?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're very clear. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that this policy is critical for the success of our district and for our students. This definitely needs a lot of thought because it is definitely regarding federal and state laws, and it is a critical piece. So, yeah, it's very wordy. It's very wordy, and I know that we're very technical when it comes to that, but I think it really needs to make sure we've got a couple more eyes on it first to make sure we delineate all parts of both state and federal law, and then we make it very clear this is IEP, this is parent, because we've got parents that are going to refer to this very closely. And I want to make sure that the policy we implement protects students, staff, districts, and parents. And so it's critical and important. But I also don't want to limit, right? I mean, we do have a shortage of critical skilled staff in our district, whether it's ABA services, whether it's speech, whether it's OT. So I do want our policy to reflect our ability to have those outside people coming in to provide that service on an ongoing basis, because a speech therapist is not going to do anything but enhance the educational development of our students. So I want to make sure we've got that ability. So if we could take this back and just maybe simplify, I don't want to simplify it, that's not the right word, but
Clarify.
organize it a little bit differently, maybe, and clarify a few places. I know we've got someone else who wants to say something.
I'm sorry. I was wondering, I see exactly what you're saying. As you read down, you flow right from the IEP into that section. That piece has a title in statute, and I was wondering if this makes sense to everyone to put letter E, call it collaboration for public and private personnel as the statute reads as a separate piece, and that really keeps it away from the two. And the parts that combine are already in each of those sections. Does that make good sense?
I think that would help clarify that it's not necessarily an IEP team decision. This PIP part is very much a parental requested service, and it doesn't replace what we're doing. So like if we're doing speech therapy and mom and dad want the speech therapist to come, that does not replace our speech therapy. It's in addition to. So I think that may help if we separate that out.
Yeah, however we can clarify, like I said, this is a very critical piece of our academic services that we just want to make sure we line up before we pass it.
She's not Area 4 anymore.
It's 4 for life.
For life.
Thank you.
Yep.
So yeah, that is all of our policy revisions. I do appreciate the conversation in providing me direction. Particularly, we had our policy revisions that we will keep bringing those forward to the board as requested by you back, I think it was September, October, that we bring these policy revisions forward. We'll continue to do that, and I appreciate the direction today, the conversation around the cell phone policy to provide me direction to, again, work with my staff to bring a little bit more clarity and feedback as we move this policy forward. So thank you again for the conversation with this workshop today with the revisions and in providing me some direction. So thank you.
And seeing no further comments, questions, or concerns, the meeting's adjourned.